Gamergate. You might have heard that term. It's the story that has produced threats of mass shootings, forced a woman to move from her home recently after rape threats, and made front-page headlines around the country in recent days. Gamergate's pretty hard to summarize. In its simplest form, it's a torrent of attacks against women in an industry now gaining increasingly prominent places in our culture. Gaming was a $21 billion industry in 2013, and that number is growing fast. It's also home to increasingly complex and diverse storytelling. But Gamergate poses tough questions about whether that industry's culture has grown up alongside its profitability. The whole explosive story started as something we've seen a million times, a disgruntled ex-boyfriend posting a sexist diatribe against a young woman, an indie game developer named Zoe Quinn. That diatribe included unfounded allegations that Quinn was sleeping with a game journalist to gain favorable reviews. That led to online harassment, including threats of death and of sexual violence, first against Zoe, and then against countless other women connected with the games business. Joining us now is the woman at the center of this controversy, Zoe Quinn. Zoe, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. First of all, we know you're still getting threats. We're not disclosing your location today for that reason. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I mean, it's been an incredibly long 2 months, especially with internet time. Usually things flare up on the internet and vanish and are forgotten as quickly as they sprung up in the first place. But it's I'm still here.
Well, we're happy to hear that. It's been a brutal firestorm, and the bigger debate it seems to have triggered is this. Is this just a few bad apples, as you'd see in any industry, or does this pull back a curtain on a bigger culture of misogyny in the games industry? Which is it?
Well, it's complicated, right? So we're currently at a time in the industry that is very exciting. It's one of the reasons that I've gravitated so hard to this and sort of found my calling in making games here, because we're at a point in the industry where it's now easier than it's ever been before for anybody to make a game. The game tools have started to become more and more accessible. They've become free. A lot of open source stuff is happening that's really kind of amazing. So what you're starting to see is a lot of people entering the industry that are not from a traditional background, that are starting to make new and interesting things and really push those limits. And now you don't need a computer science degree or to be part of a studio of hundreds of people to make a game about something. Like in my case, I do make most of my games in 1 to 3 people teams, and I can make whatever I want since I don't have a boss, I don't have stockholders. And as such, now that we're starting to see so many people entering and we're seeing more diversity in the player base as well, you're starting to see this explosion of creativity and these backgrounds and these subjects being covered by games that you've never seen before.
And Zoe, we're showing footage of Gone Home, which is a lesbian coming-of-age story. We have footage of a couple of games we'll show the audience that are female-centric, female-led. There's Alien Isolation, which has a very strong female protagonist. That's just out now. This industry has gotten more and more diverse in the ways you're talking about. It's home to more and more diverse content. For the 40% of Americans who are just being acquainted with the gaming industry now because they don't play games, what would you tell them to think of this business when all they know of it is these hateful threats against women?
It's troubling because I feel like that Gamergate has given a lot of bad PR to the people that care about games and the people making them. Just because it's named Gamergate doesn't mean that this has something to do with everybody who's here. There's been so many strides and so much progress made in the last 20 years towards making games more inclusive and making them more for everybody. And games fully belong to everybody. If you play Candy Crush, you're a gamer. If you play Call of Duty, you're a gamer. If you play weird games about depression and feelings, you're just as much of a gamer as anybody else. The unfortunate thing is that these people who are sort of extreme voices have undone so much of that work. So the medium itself is quite powerful and something that I love more than anything. But unfortunately, there are people who don't want games to be inclusive. There are people that want to keep people like me, people like the people who play Candy Crush, they want to keep it marginalized into this tiny, narrowly defined definition of what they think a real gamer is. But that's not reflective of the people who play games, the people who make games, and it's certainly not reflective. And we're showing
some of the stats, Zoe, of just how not reflective that is. Actually, male gamers between 10 and 25 years old are only 15% of gamers right now, so there's a lot of reason to question these stereotypes. But certainly what is real is the hatred from these men sending threats. What's your message to those men?
I really wish they would just grow up. I'm not going anywhere. Neither is Brianna. Neither are any of the other women that have been targeted, aside from those who had to quit. Not because of the threats and being so vile, because they are, but because they're like some of the writers who've quit have decided, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore. You know, I don't want to, I can take my skills and go to any other field and not have to deal with this, and I don't blame them. But personally, I love games. I love the people who make them and the people who play them, and I'm not going anywhere. So hopefully, the people who issue these threats, the people who are responsible for this harassment, who would see people like me and people like these other people run out, I would say all you're doing is it's like a death knell. You guys are becoming rapidly irrelevant.
Zoe, that is such an important message. Zoe Quinn is not going anywhere. Neither are these scores of other women working in the games industry. Thank you for being so public about this. I know it's a difficult time, but you really have pulled back the curtain on something very important and ugly for the country to see.
Thank you. I just hope it changes.
Appreciate that. Our thoughts are with you. Zoe Quinn. Up next, what would a 30